Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And in a typical example of sheer moral cowardice, Humza Yousaf is running away and hiding from the CAS report. He refuses responsibility, he refuses to take ownership, and he also refuses to shut down what is known as the tartan Tavistock in Glasgow. He seems to think that the tiny proportion of people for whom this would matter are more important than the vast majority of children in Scotland. You have to wonder where his priorities lie. If you're pitching to one's audience, it is always better to be on the side of the moral right rather than the tiny minority of deviants. But not so with Humza Yousaf, once again proving that in every single decision he makes, he sides with the wrong side. Every time, without fail. And so he is saying by his actions or lack of actions that he is quite happy for children to carry on being mutilated, sterilised, pushed down a one-way street from which there is no return, simply to fulfil the hopes, dreams and aspirations of child abusers everywhere. That's Humza Yousaf for you. No wonder he's moving his family into Butte House for security reasons. Anyone outside would certainly remonstrate with him, waggle a finger, do something far worse. Let's take a look to see why this absolute foul piece of human garbage is not standing up for the rights, freedoms and safety of children in Scotland. Here goes. So Humza Yousaf rebuffs calls to shut down tartan Tavistock as he abdicates responsibility for dealing with the CAS review. This is too hard for him. He's stood by for years now, backing gender reform, backing the trans lobby. He's nailed his colours to the mast, his colours being pink, white and blue. And now that it's been seen how bad and awful it is, he daren't address the problem. He can't come out and say, look, I did this and I was wrong. I was led by false evidence. I was pushed into it by people with an agenda. And I apologise. I now see the error of my ways and will move on. That's what anyone sensible would do. But not an egotistical narcissist who can never be wrong. Humza Yousaf is now still picking his hill to die on, and it will be the hill of gender recognition. And he is wrong. And he is standing there now and still pushing for the abuse of children. What a stance. What a stance for a man to make. A man like Humza Yousaf standing there saying that abusing children is a good thing and that he's abdicating all responsibility for it in Scotland, even though he likes to parade himself as the First Minister. What an odious toad he truly is. The First Minister finally spoke publicly about the CAS review after a week of ignoring it, in the hope if he sticks his fingers in his ears and goes la la la, it'll go away. But this isn't going away, Mr. Yousaf. His comments showed his painfully weak leadership as he failed to commit to anything. He hasn't got leadership. He lurches from failure to panic to crisis in the hope that someone else will pick up the ball and run with it, and then he can claim the glory of success, but disown any failure. This is the trouble, isn't it? Failure is an orphan, but success has many fathers. Humza Yousaf has rebuffed calls to shut down Scotland's tartan Tavistock clinic as he abdicated responsibility for the Scottish Government dealing with the damning CAS review. The review, of course, showed how awful it was, how wrong it was, how 97.5% of the children who go through it aren't actually trans, but they're various other reasons that aren't even investigated, and so it should stop immediately and be completely rejigged, and in doing so would reduce the incidence of this by nearly 2 orders of magnitude. But that doesn't push and sit well with the likes of Stonewall, who have this power lobby that sort of bullies people into doing things. Well, now we can see, which I've always said, but you can see for yourselves now that Stonewall is a group of child abusers. They want to destroy children's lives, sterilise them en masse. Exactly the sort of thing that went on in the 30s in Germany in certain camps. And Humza Yousaf is aligning himself with it. It's a very weird. I don't see the political nous here. We know he hasn't got any, but morally, ethically, has he got no morals and ethics either? Certainly no intelligence, but hey, his advisors surely should be telling him, step away from this one, reverse ferret, let's get out there and put this spin on it. But apparently they're too chicken as well. Anyway, attempts to get an official comment from the Health Secretary have been rejected, including a topical question and ministerial statement at Holyrood. Now it has returned from recess. Calls have been made for puberty blockers not to be prescribed north of the border, after Dr. Hilary Cass said there was not enough evidence for them. And indeed, there is no evidence at all. I mean, literally zero evidence that they are safe. No one has done a full long-term study to show that these things are safe. They have done studies to show that there are dangers. They have done studies to show that they're not reversible, despite the claims. And so it is a permanent damage to children that Humza Yousaf is now backing. Is that who you want as First Minister? I mean, even to you SNP supporters who come on here and hate watch me, I know you do. But think about this. Do you want a First Minister who will not stand up and protect children from powerful lobby groups that intend harm upon those children? Just think about that for a second. Because that's what the SNP are advocating. Look to your children, your grandchildren. And just think of the damage that that party would do to them, simply because Humza Yousaf cannot accept that he was wrong. The First Minister was finally pinned down about this topic on Good Morning Scotland, where he insisted that all aspects of the review would be considered, but is being urged to act urgently to at least pause gender-changing treatments until they do so. Campaigners also want the Sandford Clinic in Glasgow to be closed down, as it dishes out the same puberty blockers as the discredited Tavistock Clinic in England. That was shut down last year following an outcry after a damning assessment by Dr. Cass. And you have now and I've mentioned this before, one of the largest class action lawsuits is being lodged, or will be lodged shortly, with within the English court system against the NHS. And it's going to result in billions in payments, because all these people who were not assessed properly, no psychiatric, no psychological examinations, they are now provably not trans. They're all these people that have been through the process, but they're not trans. They were never examined properly. There's all sorts of things. They were pushed down it. They were told this, that and the other. They were trans-housens by their parents who didn't want gay children. It's easier to have a trans child than a gay child and all this sort of thing. There's children that are on the autism spectrum, children who've been bullied, children who are grieving, all sorts of other mental conditions. And it was just easy, just get them in there, cut the bollocks off, call them Susan, put them in a frock and off they go. And of course that doesn't cure the problem. And so they've teamed up, they've got this massive class action, and it is going to absolutely clean up. And the trouble is, of course, it's the NHS, and so ultimately the taxpayer will be paying this. But it really needs to result in the firing of every single person involved and the prosecution of the senior ones, because they've undoubtedly done this to children. And if they have done this without full testing, then that is serious abuse, and they need to do a very long time in prison for each individual case. And if it means 800 years in prison for you, then 800 years it is. And that's how it's got to be. But every single person involved everywhere has to lose their license to work in medicine again. Doesn't matter. From the lowliest nurse to the highest consultant surgeon. Don't care. Take away their licenses. Take away their livelihood. Those that have done it go to prison, and the rest cast onto the slag heap. I don't care. Anyway, Mr. Yousaf said Sandford provides, we know, some exceptional healthcare to some of those who are the most marginalised and vulnerable. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It panders. It panders and prescribes needlessly, without full examinations, without full evidence. And it's handing out dangerous materials, dangerous medicines that have not yet been tested. It's doing so simply on the whims of parents or the push of young, inexperienced people who are yet to finally find their identity. And when they do, they often end their own lives at about 20 times the rate of the normal world, because they're not trans. They've just been pushed down there. He also confirmed they would look at a ban on puberty blockers, but looking isn't doing, as we know. This is just easy words. We will look at it. It's the easiest way of saying it. Doesn't mean he's committing to it or I will do it. Won't say that. But he insisted it was clinicians who prescribed them and not politicians. Yeah, okay. So if my clinician said, "Oh no, it's fine. Here, have some cocaine or something," that would be fine, would it? I don't think so. All doctors operate within the law. You know that, Hamza Yousaf. Don't be lying and saying it's all medical. It's not. Nothing is all medical. There's a lot of times when it isn't medical and it is indeed politically driven. There's things that doctors cannot do because of politicians. So cut the shit, really. His concerns were blasted by Scottish Tory Deputy Leader Megan Gallagher, who has long campaigned for action to be taken on the issue. Her request for a ministerial statement was blocked because she said she needs the health minister to speak, and it was told, no, I'm not speaking. They're blocking it. What have they got to hide? Why is it so bad that the SNP's health minister, Neil Gray, refuses to answer questions on this very, very important subject? He is absolutely craven, as well as being stupid. I mean, half the problem is he's absolutely thick. I mean, he's as thick as custard. But he can't answer the questions when asked because it's too hard. But there's also the stance that the SNP have, so he's too embarrassed. There's also the fact that he's really shit at his job. He's never had a job of that calibre before, and so he's completely out, flailing around, drowning in his job. He needs to go as well. Needs to get someone in who can do something. Although looking at the rest of them, very little talent isn't going to happen, is it? Anyway, she said the interview again exposed Humza Yousaf's painfully weak leadership. On the cash review, he failed vulnerable young people and their parents by stalling for time and passing the buck to clinicians. She said it's not good enough to say he and the health boards need more time to look at Dr. Cash's report, and it's an abdication of leadership not to pause the prescribing of puberty blockers in the interim. She is bang on right. He's a coward, morally, ethically, and intellectually. He is not a leader. He is just a slapped old wet fish sitting there flailing around waiting for someone to put him out of our misery. I'm coming up. Do we expect any less from Humza Yousaf? Probably not. Now, I got a comment earlier, and I'm just going to reflect on this because it is related, and it's related both to the gender issue and also to Humza Yousaf. So, if you're out there in YouTube land and you recognise this comment, well done to you. I thank you for it. And that is this: if a man who is a Muslim decided and went and got sex change and became a lady, pretendy lady, and went to the mosque and went and walked in to the women's section in the mosque, would Humza Yousaf stand in the mosque and defend that man and say, no, he has the right to be there. We identify him as a woman, even though, yes, he does still have his testicles and his penis, but look, he's wearing whatever apparel that they wear. We must treat this man as a woman and let him be a woman. What would the mosque, other men in the mosque say? Would they allow that? Or would they be breaking the law? And would Humza Yousaf then call the police to say, no, we must defend this man's right to be recognised as a woman? Because that ultimately would be the big test for Humza Yousaf, wasn't it? Let's have a man walking into the women's section of the mosque pretending to be a woman. Most interesting. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. I will speak to you later. Bye.